I was still in my wedding dress when I realized my mother-in-law had declared war on me. The lace dug into my ribs, the veil clung to my sweaty forehead, and somewhere in the Charleston reception hall, guests were still laughing, champagne spilling as the DJ played some tired wedding classic. But I wasn't laughing. I was standing in a hallway near the bathrooms, holding my phone, my stomach turning as the truth unfolded in real time. Sandra, Daniel's mother, my brand new mother-in-law, had live-streamed my wedding. Not to relatives who couldn't make it, not to some friend out of state. She streamed it to Monica, Daniel's ex-wife, the woman Sandra still called the perfect daughter-in-law, the woman she thought Daniel had been a fool to divorce. The woman who apparently needed a front row seat to the wedding so she could gather ammunition and drag Daniel back into court, because to Sandra, this wasn't my wedding. It was a crime scene, evidence. I scrolled through the notifications, my chest heaving, and there it was. Monica's name, smug little heart reactions popping up as if she were in the pews herself. Monica had watched it all, my vows, my kiss, my fucking promises, like a spectator at a game she'd already decided to win. And the worst part, Sandra wanted it this way. I could hear her voice in my head, the one she used when she thought she was clever. Rachel, you should be grateful. Monica kept Daniel grounded. You'll learn. Learn what? That I was a placeholder? That I'd never measure up? That this marriage was already doomed before the ink on the license was dry? I pressed my back against the wall, trying to breathe. My guests thought I was fixing my lipstick. Daniel thought I was taking a moment to myself. No one knew I was staring at my phone, realizing my new mother-in-law had just detonated my life before I'd even opened the first wedding gift. And in that moment, something shifted inside me. I wasn't just angry. I wasn't just humiliated. I was awake. Sandra thought she was playing chess, moving pieces in secret, putting her precious Monica back in position, but she had no idea who she had just crowned queen. Because if she wanted war, I wasn't about to come at her with tears. I was going to come at her with fire. And trust me, I had a kind of revenge in mind that would make streaming my wedding look like child's play. But before I tell you how I made Sandra choke on the very control she craved, you need to understand where I came from, who I was, and why I refused to be broken, not by an ex-wife, not by a bitter mother, not by anyone. Because this isn't just a story of a ruined wedding. It's the story of how I turned betrayal into a weapon. They say weddings bring families together. Sandra used mine to tear us apart. For months after Daniel proposed, Sandra treated me like Monica's shadow. Monica, the ex-wife, the saint, the son, the woman who could do no wrong. I was the intruder, the replacement she never asked for. Every conversation was a comparison. Monica's Easter brunches were divine. Monica never served pasta. She said it bloated guests. Monica always made Daniel look so sharp. It was death by 8,000 cuts. And then, 3 months before the wedding, Sandra changed. She became warm, invited me to lunch, called me dear, told me I was family. She even brushed my hair back one day and said, "Rachel, you're the bride now. You deserve to shine." I didn't trust it. But Daniel, sweet, hopeful Daniel, said, "Maybe she's finally coming around. Maybe this is her way of accepting you." And I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe we could have peace. That's when Sandra dropped her gift. She was a board member of the Charleston Women's Society of Distinction, the kind of organization where women were pearls to brunch and judged each other's garden parties. In her world, appearances were oxygen, and she told us flat out,
You can't have a small wedding. Not when you're part of this family. People will talk. It needs to be elegant, prestigious.
Daniel and I had agreed on a cozy garden ceremony, maybe 30 guests, buffet dinner. We didn't want debt hanging over us. But Sandra pressed harder, painting visions of chandeliers, string quartets, and a ballroom filled with Charleston's elite. When we hesitated, she leaned in with the nuclear option. I'll pay for it, every penny. Think of it as my gift. Then she named the sum, $75,000. I nearly choked, but Daniel's eyes softened, and under the table, he squeezed my hand. Babe, maybe one thing. If it means so much to her, it'll build a bridge. So I caved, and Sandra smiled like a snake who'd just swallowed a bird. The money came the next week. Not a transfer, not a check, cash. Stacks of it, neat as bricks, delivered in a leather envelope. I remember joking nervously, "What are we supposed to do, bury this in the yard?" She chuckled. Cash is cleaner, simpler, no messy paper trails. I didn't understand then, but now I know exactly why she did it. Because Daniel's divorce settlement with Monica had a hardship class. It capped his alimony and child support as long as he could prove he was financially strapped. His lawyer argued he was stretched to the bone, barely keeping up with bills. The judge agreed. That clause was the only reason he still had breathing room. But the clause had a catch. If Monica could show evidence of discretionary income or luxury spending, she could haul him back into court and demand more. Any sign that Daniel was living above his means, vacations, fancy cars, or say, a lavish $75,000 wedding could blow the cap wide open. And Sandra knew this. She'd been in the courtroom. She'd heard every detail. So when she insisted on luxury, when she shoved that cash into Daniel's hands, she wasn't being generous. She was setting a trap. Because cash leaves no trail, no receipts to prove the money came from her. On paper, it looked like Daniel funded the whole thing, which meant in Monica's lawyer's hands, our wedding wasn't a celebration. It was evidence. So when I stood in that hallway at the reception, my veil slipping and my phone buzzing with Monica's smug little heart emojis on the live stream, everything clicked. Sandra's sudden warmth, the insistence on lavish, the cash envelopes. She hadn't just betrayed me. She'd armed Monica. She'd turned my vows, my dress, my fucking flowers into Exhibit A. Sandra wanted Monica back in Daniel's life, and she wanted me gone. And if she thought this was going to break me, she had no idea who she was dealing with, because I don't go down quietly, and the revenge I had in store was going to make Sandra choke on every last dollar she thought she could weaponize.
You ever feel like your life has turned into a courtroom drama you never auditioned for? That was me. 3 weeks after the wedding. I should have been unpacking gifts, hanging pictures, still glowing from the honeymoon. Instead, I was sitting across from Daniel at our tiny dining table, staring at a thick envelope his lawyer had just delivered. Monica had filed. Her petition was sharp, cruel, and filled with screenshots. Photos of our wedding venue lit up like Versailles, the 5-course menu with filet mignon and lobster tail, shots of me swirling champagne in my white gown, even a clip of our first dance, Daniel spinning me under chandeliers, captioned with, "Clearly not under financial hardship." And then came the kicker, a motion to modify child support and alimony upward by $2,500 a month. I felt the blood drain from my face. They're using our wedding against us? Daniel's jaw tightened. They're trying to make it look like I paid for it, like I lied to the court. And Sandra knew. My voice cracked. She knew this would happen. That's why she pushed for lavish. That's why she gave us cash. No trail. Daniel didn't answer. He didn't have to. The look on his face said it all. His own mother had set him up. It would have been funny if it wasn't so vicious.
I mean, can you imagine? Every flower I picked, every candle I lit, every stupid fucking sequin on those table runners. They weren't just decorations, they were weapons. Evidence Monica's lawyer was parading in front of a judge to bleed us dry. I wanted to laugh and scream at the same time. Congratulations, Rachel. You didn't plan a wedding. You planned an exhibit. The first court hearing was brutal. Monica walked in wearing a navy suit that probably cost more than my dress. She smiled at Daniel like they were still married, like she'd won him back already. Sandra sat behind her. Yes, my mother-in-law sat behind Monica in court. When I turned to look at her, she didn't flinch. She just adjusted her pearl necklace and gave me the tiniest, satisfied smile. I nearly ripped the bench out of the floor. The lawyer presented the photos, the live-stream timestamps, the evidence of lavish expenditure inconsistent with claimed hardship. The judge nodded, made notes. Daniel's lawyer tried to argue, "Your Honor, this was a gift from his mother, not discretionary income." But without a bank record, without a paper trail, it was our word against Monica's photos. Sandra had made sure of that. That night, I sat on the bathroom floor in my nightgown, knees pulled to my chest, mascara smeared. Daniel was pacing in the bedroom, calling his lawyer, calling anyone who would listen. But me, I was staring at the tile, thinking one thought over and over. Sandra didn't just betray us. She didn't just humiliate me. She orchestrated the whole fucking downfall. And now, she thought she had us cornered. But here's the thing about snakes. When you trap them, they think they've won. They coil, they hiss, they strike. What they don't expect is fire. And I was done being her puppet, her target, her casualty. If she wanted a war, I'd give her one. And I wouldn't just win. I'd make her regret ever picking up that phone.
The judge didn't even flinch when he read the ruling. Temporary adjustment granted. Defendant will remit an additional $1,500 per month until further review. Boom. Just like that. No dramatic pause, no room for objections, just a gavel strike that felt like it split my skull in half. Daniel swore under his breath. His lawyer muttered something about appeals process, but I barely heard him. My ears were ringing and my eyes were locked on Sandra. She had the audacity to squeeze Monica's shoulder as they walked out, like they were co-conspirators in some twisted sorority united by their hatred of me. Sandra even laughed, a soft, smug chuckle that only I caught. It was the laugh of a woman who thought she'd buried me alive. Back home, Daniel tore through his dust drawers, looking for anything, receipts, contracts, text messages that could prove the wedding was Sandra's show, not ours. Nothing. Of course there was nothing. Sandra had been meticulous. No checks, no transfers, not even a goddamn Venmo payment. Just stacks of crisp bills in an envelope, hands it over with a smile and a poisonous, "This will be easier." I sat on the bed, numb. Our honeymoon glow was gone. Our first months of marriage poisoned. And for what? To line Monica's pockets and stroke Sandra's ego? I replayed the wedding in my head. Every moment that had felt strange suddenly clicked into place. Sandra insisting on the ballroom instead of the garden we wanted. Sandra demanding gold-rimmed china because plastic cutlery would embarrass me in the league. Sandra handing Daniel that fat envelope of cash like she was a mafia boss. I thought she was trying. I thought she was finally letting me in. Turns out, I was just the bait. At dinner the next week, Sandra twisted the knife. She invited us over, like nothing had happened, and set out a roast beef that filled her mansion with the smell of garlic and thyme. She poured herself a glass of red, lifted it in a mock toast, and said, "Well, at least your wedding was memorable." I froze. Daniel's fork clattered against his plate. "Memorable?" he spat. Sandra tilted her head, all innocence. "Of course. Everyone's still talking about it. Isn't that what you wanted, Rachel? All eyes on you."
My chest burned. I wanted to lunge across that table, shove the wine glass down her throat, and watch her choke on it. But I smiled instead, because I knew something Sandra didn't. Every smirk, every jab, every little show of dominance was fuel. She thought she had me cornered, but what she didn't realize was that she was giving me time. And in that time, I was beginning to see just how far I'd have to go to destroy her. Not just embarrass her, not just clap back with some cheap trick. No, if I was going to fight Sandra and Monica, I'd need something dark, something permanent, something that would make them regret ever breathing my name. And when I found it, oh, they'd wish they'd never lit that match.
If Sandra's little roast beef smirk had been a slap, what she did at the gala was a knife to the gut. 2 weeks later, Daniel and I were at the annual charity gala hosted by the Order of the Golden Magnolia. Sandra's pride and joy, her golden ticket into the city's most exclusive social circles. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers, walls draped in silk, and tables heavy with crystal glasses of champagne. Sandra had insisted we come. "Appearances matter, Rachel," she'd said. "People are watching." It wasn't a suggestion. It was a summons. The evening was already unbearable. Sandra paraded us around like trophies she didn't actually want but needed to show off. Every introduction was dipped in poison. "This is my son, Daniel, carrying on the family name as best he can. And this is Rachel, his new wife. Bless her heart, she's still adjusting." That fake Southern sweetness, bless her heart, burned like acid. But the real ambush came during the auction. The auctioneer called for bids on a weekend in Napa. Sandra raised her paddle without hesitation. $10,000, she said, her voice smooth as cream. The crowd clapped politely. Then she turned her head, sharp as a blade, and pointed her lacquered nails at Daniel. "My son will cover it." My blood went cold. Daniel's face drained of color. The crowd applauded. People laughed. To them, it was charming, a rich family flexing. But I caught Monica's lawyer across the room. He smiled, like a man who'd just been handed the final piece of a puzzle. This wasn't generosity. This wasn't pride. This was evidence. Sandra was setting Daniel up to look like a reckless spender with deep pockets. Every laugh, every toast, every glittering witness, all ammunition for Monica's case. On the drive home, Daniel was silent. His grip on the steering wheel was so tight, his knuckles turned bone white. "He set me up," he whispered. "She fucking set me up in front of everyone." He dropped me off at our house, kissed my forehead with shaking lips, and said he had to go confront her. I wanted to come, but he told me no. This is between me and my mother. So I waited. Hours crawled by. When Daniel finally walked through the door after midnight, his face looked like he'd been hit by a truck. "He told me everything," he said flatly, collapsing onto the couch. "What do you mean?" I asked, my chest tightening. And then the truth came out. Sandra wasn't just humiliating us for sport. She wasn't just feeding Monica's legal team for fun. She had a plan. "She wants me broke," Daniel said, his voice breaking. "She wants me drowning in debt, so I'll have no choice but to crawl back to her." I sat there frozen, barely breathing as he explained. Sandra wasn't just his mother. She was the trustee of the family empire, $600 million built by Richard, Daniel's late father. Richard had intended to pass it to Daniel as a wedding gift, but suddenly died of pancreatic cancer before he could see his boy tie the marital knot. And Sandra had been on the verge of handing it over while he was still married to Monica. Monica, the daughter of a powerful business tycoon, a woman Sandra adored, a woman she thought was the perfect match. But Daniel blew it all up when he divorced Monica for emotional and physical abuse at the hands of spoiled, entitled brat. Sandra never forgave him. And then in her eyes, he committed the ultimate sin, marrying me, a nobody. Now, Sandra was dangling the family fortune like a carrot on a stick. At the gala, after the auction, Daniel finally snapped and demanded to know why she was destroying him.
and Sandra, with a glass of champagne in her manicured hand, laid her cards on the table. "Divorce Rachel," she told him coldly. "Go back to Monica. Do that, and the empire is yours." I felt sick. The room spun. She wasn't just sabotaging us out of sport. She was orchestrating our destruction with military precision. Her motive wasn't hidden anymore. It was bare, brutal. Sandra wanted me erased. And now I knew this wasn't just survival anymore. This was war.
When Daniel confessed his mother's ultimatum, I didn't see red. I saw opportunity. Sandra wanted me gone, Monica wanted me ruined, and Daniel was too weak to stop them. Fine. That meant I was free. Free to play dirty. And when you play dirty against someone like Sandra, you don't throw punches, you poison the well. Sandra lived for her image. Her power didn't come from her money alone. It came from the illusion that she was flawless, unbreakable, the queen bee of the Order of the Golden Magnolia. That was her drug, and I was about to lace it. First, I turned her own weapon, money, against her. Remember those fat stacks of cash she gifted us for the wedding? Well, I started spending tiny chunks of it in ways that looked suspicious. Anonymous donations to charities tied to scandals. Payments to shell accounts with names resembling Monica's lawyer's firm. A drip, drip, drip of transactions, all in Sandra's handwriting, all looking like her dirty work. Then I used the one thing high society women can't resist. Invitations. Sandra prided herself on knowing everyone that mattered. So I began slipping forged RSVPs into her pile. Private dinners, exclusive teas, charity galas, where she'd show up, overdressed, uninvited, and looking insane. "Oh, Sandra, dear, I think you've made a mistake." The looks, the pity, the whispers, the queen bee reduced to the crazy aunt no one wants at the table. But I wasn't done. My pièce de résistance came at the Golden Magnolia's annual charity auction. Sandra always donated something priceless, like her late husband's cufflinks or some diamond brooch dripping in history. This year, though, I made sure her item, a rare antique necklace, was swapped out for a perfect fake. The winning bidder, a sharp-eyed collector, exposed it on the spot. Sandra's face when the room realized she'd pawned off a counterfeit, that was better than any courtroom win. She wasn't just embarrassed, she was radioactive. And the best part? I never had to expose her live stream or bring up Monica or even mention myself. Sandra destroyed herself, chasing her own shadow, desperate to prove she was still untouchable. Dark humor? Oh, it was rich. Watching her try to host brunches where no one showed up, seeing her order champagne at galas only to get handed water. Hearing whispers like, "Careful, she might sell you glass and call it crystal." Sandra had wanted me erased. Instead, she became invisible. By the time spring rolled around, Sandra was already wobbling on the tightrope she'd strung for herself. The queen of high society had become the butt of whispered jokes, the subject of side eyes at luncheons. Her desperation was showing, and nothing is uglier than desperation dressed in pearls. But I wasn't finished. Not yet. You see, Sandra's entire existence revolved around one thing: the Richard Lowell Foundation Gala. Her late husband's name, her precious legacy. Every year she hosted it, basking in the glow of cameras, donors, and society's elite. It wasn't just an event, it was her coronation, proof she was still the empress of this city's social ladder. So I made that crown crumble. The plan? Deliciously simple, hideously cruel. Weeks before the gala, I arranged for Sandra's
personal speech draft to be swapped with one I wrote. To her, it looked flawless, filled with her usual self-congratulating fluff, but hidden between lines of syrupy praise were carefully planted slips, words twisted just enough to sound like confessions. At the podium, under the golden chandelier with cameras flashing, Sandra read every word. She praised her generous son Daniel, who foolishly wasted the family's wealth on a second marriage. She boasted about choosing Monica as the true daughter of our house. She slipped, gloriously, into calling me that nobody Rachel who drinks our wine but doesn't belong at our table. Gasps, silence, stiffened spines, and wide eyes across the ballroom. And Sandra? She didn't even realize it until the crowd began shifting, until Monica stormed out, humiliated, dragging her lawyer behind her, until Daniel stood frozen in the corner, jaw tight, eyes burning, until one woman leaned over to another and muttered, just loud enough, "She's lost her mind." But the cherry on top? Oh, it was exquisite. Remember those little anonymous donations I sprinkled around in Sandra's name? Well, the press had pieced them together by then. That very night, as the gala still reeled from her confessions, the first article hit the newswire. Sandra Lowell's secret slush fund. Suspicious payments tied to fraud-ridden charities. By the time she left that ballroom, she wasn't the queen, she was carrion. And here's the dark joke of it all. I never touched her empire, never needed her fortune. I didn't want her crown, her pearls, or her pathetic golden magnolia throne. All I wanted was for her to see me smiling at the back of that ballroom, glass in hand, while her world crumbled around her. Sandra wanted me invisible. Instead, she became a ghost. And that's how it ended. Not with screaming in a courtroom, not with a tidy little file of gotcha documents. No, Sandra destroyed herself, and I only gave her the stage to do it. I walked out of that ballroom knowing one thing for certain. Sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't about taking what they have, it's about watching them lose everything they worship while you sip your champagne. But here's the real question for you. Was I too cruel? Or did I give her exactly what she had coming? If you've ever been stabbed in the back by family, you already know the answer.
Thank you for sticking with me through this roller coaster. If this story hit you as hard as it hit me living it, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who knows exactly what betrayal feels like, and subscribe so you don't miss the next tale of justice served ice cold.